Hey, what's up, YouTube? We're back with another tier list and a video on ArcRaiders. Today, we're going to be talking about throwables. We're not going to be touching mines today. That maybe be a future video if you guys are interested. Leave a comment down below, like the video. Show that you guys are interested in mine or placeable gadget video. But today, we're going to be doing throwable, just explosives, utility, just in general in the game. And we got a special one that we'll talk about a little bit later. Throwables are incredibly powerful in a third-person game like this. They are amazing both for utility, distracting arc, taking care of players behind cover, or just taking out PvE in general. We'll talk about the pros and cons of all of them in this tier list. So let's get into it. So starting off with the Blaze Grenade, it's still absolutely the king of... It got a little bit outclassed by the Deadline Mine as far as like killing like your bigger one-shottable big boy enemies like the Bastion or the Bombardier, or if you're crazy enough, you can use a snap hook and get on top of a Rocketeer or Matriarch or Queen. But the Blaze is still absolutely insane if you can place it correctly on top of a Queen or Matriarch, or on top or below a Bombardier or a Bastion. It's just so strong at dealing with PvE. In terms of PvP, I don't think it gets that much use, mostly down to the fact that fire doesn't do that much damage in this game, at least now that they fixed the blaze trap. For the most part, it doesn't take that much damage, usually about like 20 or so percent, 25% of your shield and health about equally, which is, you know, nothing to scoff at, but you'd be surprised how many people I've seen just run straight through flames to shoot at me and possibly down me if I am low HP. So it doesn't always feel like the best area denial. It's not bad for those situations in PvP where you've like stuck them into like a corner or something like that, and you know there's no way out. It's fantastic for like, you know, punishing that kind of angle maybe, but it's mostly something that I just save for PvE. I'll save like at least a stack or two whenever we go do like Queen or Matriarch or something like that, or if we're going to kill Bombardiers. Bastions, like this time around, if you don't want to make a ton of noise against a like a trial like this one with like the Bombardier, or sorry, I guess it was Bastions this week, you just bring like a stack or two of Blaze Grenades, put them in your safety pocket, and then that's an easy way to farm team damage on that Bastion without risking too much, honestly. So honestly, I'm gonna put it high in A tier, but it's mostly down to its PvE usability. I'm not really loving it for PvP, but hell, maybe you guys have some recommendations for it. I could see it in its usage, but I think there are better options for its kind of area denial, if that makes sense. All right, Gas Grenade, very cheap area denial. I see it very similar in a way to the Blaze Grenade, but obviously not dealing fire damage, but now it is doing stamina. That's all it does. It drains your stamina basically 100%. They are essentially walking through this grenade when it is placed. Honestly, very good area denial. A lot of teams are very scared of it, especially on Stella Montes. If you throw this at their angle, they're actually kind of stuck. A lot of them will just sit third person and wait for it to be over, more or less. And it can blur the vision of some players if they're stuck right inside of it. So it's honestly not as bad as I think many people may make it out to be. I would recommend it for just either pushing a team and not wanting them to run away from you, or for like area denial. I think it's actually pretty useful. I have not seen it do anything versus Arc, but maybe you guys could let me know if you guys saw it do something. But personally, it doesn't seem to be that useful. All right, next we have the Heavy Fuse Grenade. Honestly, very solid A+. The only reason I'm not giving it an S is that it has some very funky physics. I'm sure you've thrown them and been like, wait, where is that going exactly? It bounces in the most random spots, can get stuck on some very weird terrain. The smallest of lips can stop this thing from rolling in its tracks. And honestly, sometimes it just doesn't feel great. The thing that I find works the best with it is long range, like pop flies, throwing it like quite high up and getting it to airburst on people, especially on Buried City. Oh my God. If you are dealing with another team on another rooftop and you're just like playing battling, try and see if you have the range to throw one of these. The amount of time I've gotten 2 or 3 kills at a time on a team that is just like plinking us, very high. Works stupendously well. And because they airburst, people don't really expect it. And they're like, oh, I'm just going to dodge it when it like lands. They airburst right in front of them and it works really well. Obviously that can work against you if you try to throw it too far, but it works really well on those, like, I would say like 50 or so meter throws. The Fuze is just perfect for it. One more thing for the heavy Fuze, very good versus PV if you can get it to land underneath like a bastion or land underneath a bombardier. It can actually do some serious damage even on the leaper. The problem is that because it rolls, it can be a little awkward to place correctly. But if you can get like, you know, 750 plus damage or so on the final report. I've had some very good placements on some, because like it'll damage, like it'll say, you know, when you look at it in game, it'll say, oh, it only does 80 damage. But unlike Helldivers, for instance, it can do that 80 damage to all of the legs at the exact same time, right? Multiplying its damage. And it can hit the back of the bombardier on top of that, right? So it can do some serious damage. Don't think that, you know, just because you didn't bring a Wolfpack, you didn't bring a Blaze Grenade, you can't do some good damage versus these guys. Okay, but yeah, still really good. Next for the Impact Grenade, very cheap to make. Just a couple like chemicals and just very easy to craft, even in round crafting. If you have that on the red tree, you can grab these chemicals, and I think we're looking at, I'm forgetting the second one, it always escapes me off the top of my head, plastic parts, which you're going to find a lot of, especially if you're recycling down in raid. You'll get a decent amount of them throughout the raid. Great for those third-person peekers that just don't want to peek you and trade damage with you. If you see someone's shoulder and they're just not peeking you, quickly put it on, equip it, throwing arm, peek out, throw it, get back behind cover. Because of the very small radius though, I would probably only recommend throwing like one, maybe two at a time, because most likely they're going to shift out of the explosion radius pretty quickly. So just be careful of that. You could waste them pretty fast, but they do like very good chip damage, right? Obviously you're gonna break someone's shield in one go a lot of the time, or like, especially if they have like green shields, they can do some serious damage to them if you throw like two at a time. Very nice to have. I honestly, like, if you're going to Stellamontes, I just bring 5 at a time. Even if I already have like a very good kit with other grenades, I just bring these as like little chip damage. If I don't want to, you know, full commit with maybe like a heavy Fuze or something like that, light impact work really well. They're just so cheap and you can just have so many of them, and they can be really obnoxious to fight against a team that has tons of them. They're crazy. This is one, especially for my solos out there. I always bring 5 of these as a solo, and in particular on the more wide open maps, if I have these like equipped part of my radial menu, so at any time if I need to tap Q or whatever your button is to bring out your grenade, and like someone shoots me, I throw these at my feet as I run away, and then I have this like trail of smoke. Yeah, they don't last long. They're not designed for you to like throw them down and then sit in them. You can when you're looting. I sometimes do that, but they're fantastic for breaking line of sight. They're essentially, you know, the tactical augments that like when you break shield, it like big plume of smoke. Great for that, but this one's a little more, you know, you have to put the effort in, but it works just as well. Breaks line of sight, can work really well. It can sometimes give away your position of where you're going because it's like a breadcrumbs trail, but honestly, highly recommend bringing them, especially for solos. They can work in group play, obviously, to like smoke off a teammate's body or something like that, so they don't like finish them. If you notice they're like trying to thirst that body, or their teammate dragging himself towards you, you can use that. Very useful, very cheap to make. Once again, highly recommend. A lot of people tend to just kind of ignore them because it's a little smoke grenade. Why would I use this? But it's very useful. Highly recommend. All right. Lure grenades can be both your best friend and something that kind of sucks at the exact same time. I love the utility, especially with like, you know, dealing with like the queen or the matriarch. If you just have some unwanted attention, you want it off you. Fantastic. Really nice for like throwing at enemy teams. If you notice a PvE round, honestly, the biggest reason I will tend to just bring one on some raids is just for the Rocketeer. If a Rocketeer is on you, throw it at the enemy team. Throw it in the farthest direction from you, and it might buy you like 10 to 15 seconds. Might. And the reason why I say might is because basically Arc will try to kill it, and once they kill it, they will come back to you, the next aggro on that threat table. Most of the time for the Rocketeer, it will acquire it, shoot it, go back to you. So it can only buy you maybe 5 to 10 seconds sometimes. So just be careful. Sometimes the Rocketeer is insane. Honestly, gonna put it somewhere in like B+, just because obviously it doesn't really have much use in PvP unless you like have that scenario where there is Arc around that it can be to your advantage. That's not always the case for you, but in some niche scenarios, it is game changing. So very solid. Can't really say it's like not worth it. Like if I'm looting some raider body and they have one, I'm probably gonna take it and just put it next to my slots and maybe swap to it if I need it. Very good. Very good. Showstopper. Honestly, I don't like it. I almost always sell them. I think the only reason I have seen line that I've been like, okay, fair enough, I'm not going to sell it for this reason, is to kill surveyors, because it gives you an ample amount of time to put either another nade on them or put some good ambush shots into them. It doesn't feel good against the bigger arc in general. Like originally I remember in one of the I think it was like Tech Test 2, throw a Showstopper, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get behind the, Bombardier, and I'm gonna shoot him in the back because he's got the orange power cell back there. He turns with you while stunned. He's not really stunned. He's more just like slowed, more or less. Like, you'll throw it, and for 10 seconds, he's more or less still turning with you, and he even started firing before the 10 seconds was up. I was very surprised and honestly kind of sad about it. As far as PvP, because it only lasts about 2.5 seconds, it's kind of disappointing from that perspective. I wish it lasted, 2 seconds on a raider. Often it's more of like area denial. If you notice someone's pushing you and you just don't want them to push you right now and you want to scare them, you can do that. But honestly, most likely you're going to throw it. As you throw it, he's rushing, you hit him, and then you're trying to scramble to get your weapon out to punish him while he's stunned. Most likely he's going to be out of his stun state by the time you get your shot off, unless you have managed to put some pretty good attachments on your weapon for swap speed and stuff like that. It's very awkward. Some weapons obviously are better for it, like Stitcher, you can swap to it faster, but it can be very awkward if you have like a very cumbersome weapon and you're trying to punish someone after a Showstopper. I find the Showstopper works pretty well in team play because you can stun them while your teammate pushes. That works a little bit better, but honestly, it's worth 2.2k credits, coins. I just sell them and I'll buy something else. Save them for surveyor blueprint farming, but honestly, it's C tier for me. Not a huge fan in both PvP or PvE. I just wish I had a different grenade in my hand, obviously, in a lot of situations. Because in that same situation, I could have just thrown, a trigger bomb and done a crazy amount of damage. And it's also working as area denial at the same time for it. So yeah. Okay, Shrapnel Grenades. They are kind of like your budget heavy fuse grenade, more or less. They can be fun to use because they stack to 5 rather than fuse grenades that only stack to 3. So that's kind of like the one benefit it gains. Obviously doing less damage and having less of a radius. Also, they seem a bit weird because they work kind of like they work actually the same way as the Shredder, where if you've ever noticed with the Shredder, sometimes you can actually dodge their attack by like offsetting yourself because it's kind of like, area of attack. I've had some weird situations where shrapnel grenades blow up next to players and it like doesn't seem to do damage to them. And I think it's because it's doing shrapnel rather than explosive, where it's doing a full AoE. This one's more just doing a bunch of shrapnel. And if none of the shrapnel hit them, doesn't do any damage. Maybe that's just more of like an appearance thing and it's like anecdotal here, but I haven't always had the best time with them. Because they stack to 5 though, it is extremely strong to just bring one stack and just chuck them in a room. It's very hard to dodge a bunch of them in that scenario. And because they have a pretty respectable explosion radius, decent. My other issue though is they are pretty expensive to craft though, and that's another reason why I'm putting them in B tier. Springs are not always easy to come by, and you want to use them for like your modifications and other crafting, and it just sucks to have to use your steel springs, especially 2 on a shrapnel grenade. I would much rather just be collecting explosive compound and canisters to just make heavy fuses, or go for the cheaper and going for light impact. We haven't got there yet, but even like trigger grenades, especially on Stelamontas, processors are everywhere in those server closets, that you can crack open. And crude explosives, because you can refine for them, you just have crude explosive all the time. So honestly, other grenades feel cheaper to make and they are more impactful. We'll skip to it now because I really want to talk about it. Trigger grenades are insane because of their C4 nature, where you throw them, they stick to something and they blow up. You can both use them as a regular grenade, kind of like Battlefield, where you throw it and then immediately detonate it midair, or when it hits that surface or it goes through the door. It's very hard to react to because it has such a large radius. It's 7.5 meters. I find the fuse time, especially in closer quarters, the fuse time of the heavy fuse is so long that people have more than enough time to try and sprint dodge away, but they have less time when you do the heavy fuse. Way less time. Heavy fuses are really good, but honestly, the trigger grenades, chef's kiss. Also really good for PvE. They're a little bit easier to place because obviously they're sticky. You can use them as traps. The amount of times I've seen someone in a YouTube short or in a TikTok or something like that, they throw a bunch of sticky nades to the top of the elevator or at the top of like a ladder or a zip line, detonate. So powerful, especially because they tend to just be better landmines than actually explosive mines, because explosive mines only do 40 damage at 7.5 meters. Trigger grenades do 90. You place 2 of these, you're instant killing someone. It's a lot of damage. It's terrifying when someone throws this in a doorway. We've had a couple of pushes in Stellamontis that are completely shut down because one guy threw a trigger grenade as we were trying to push a doorway. All of our shields are gone, half health. We're panicking. Trigger grenades are just so good, and they're very cheap to use, very cheap to craft, very easy to just like walk out of Stellamontis with 5 processors and you have 5 nades for the next one. Just so easy. Next, smoke grenades. Smoke grenades are obviously S tier. I highly recommend bringing like 1, 2 always, smoking a body as you're looting it, smoking a bombardier when you're looting it for rotations, smoking the enemy. If you have an enemy that is like posted up in a doorway and they're poking at you, smoke them, reposition. It gives you a lot of freedom to rotate or to push, like smoke them and rush them. They often panic, especially if you nade the smoke. Like what you do is you throw the smoke and then you throw a trigger nade into it, explode it. They won't see the trigger nade flying towards them, and then it explodes. They're panicking. You rush them. It's actually really strong. It's a very good offensive and defensive tool, both for rotations. It's just so good. I highly recommend them. And they're also not that, hard to make. Once you get the blueprint, obviously you need the blueprint, but 1 canister, 14 chemicals, bro, Scrappy always has those chemicals for you. You're not really using the chemicals for other things too much, so canisters are very easy to come by and you can trade for them at Celeste. So yeah, highly recommend smoke grenades. Always got 1 or 2 in my inventory just in case we need them. Snap Blast. Snap Blast is a difficult one. I really like Snap Blast, but I also really hate Snap Blast at the same time. Their trigger takes a long time. I find I use them more for area denial than I do for anything else. Because they take so long to actually activate, I find they rarely actually do damage unless it's kind of like a blaze grenade scenario where you've got them caught in a corner and they can't get out of it, which is awesome. But honestly, any grenade can do that. Where the Snap Blast can work pretty well is if you are a Halo pro and you're used to plasma grenades and sticking people. Very often you can stick someone, they might not realize, they walk into your teammate, double the damage. Very good for that. They can be pretty cool for like long range throwing because they have a pretty long fuse time. But yeah, I don't know. Not always my favorite to bring. I will obviously pick them up and use them, but I would rather maybe actually have the Shrapnel Grenade a lot of times just because you can stack them up to 5. And I honestly think they're okay. It's hard for me to like praise them, and I can't really criticize them. They have benefits. You can throw them at weird angles and they stick to things, but does that match up to the trigger grenade? No, the trigger grenade is just so good because that fuse time is so short because you can instantly explode it. It's so good. It's terrifying. Tagging grenade. Tagging grenade. Tagging grenade. Tagging grenade. I have love and hate for it, like a lot of nades, but more so hate for them. We'll start with what I like. I like the fact that you can 3D spot people. A little eye symbol shows up. You can see people behind walls if you can throw it correctly. Awesome. Problem. They tag dead bodies, and that can be very misleading. If there is a dead body in the like the knocked out raider inside that same room, you can easily get baited by that symbol tracking a knocked out raider. It shouldn't do that. It absolutely shouldn't. Second part, it doesn't tag for your teammates. So it's kind of awkward when it's like, oh, I tagged a bunch. They're over there, but it's like, okay, that's great. I already kind of knew they were over there. It doesn't help me. If it tagged for both your teammates as well, that'd be kind of a game changer. I would want to value these a lot more. If it didn't tag knocked out raiders, it's a game changer. I wouldn't want to avoid them as much. And also they sell for a lot. So I tend to just sell them. I don't love them. I tend to just use them when I have a free kit, or if I've looted them, sure, I'll throw them. But very often I will only really value them for like solo raiders because it can be quite useful for knowing where one individual is. If you can get a good tag, you can do some really good peek shooting on them because obviously you can pre-fire, right? There's no delay in your shot. I think it's very similar to the Showstopper, but I could easily see the tagging grenade be better if they changed how it worked around with your with other raiders. It's close, but not really. Wolfpack, this one recently got changed. They made it a little bit more expensive to make. Honestly, kind of, okay, this might be a little controversial. I am kind of glad they made it use some things that we weren't really using, like arc motion cores weren't really being used at all, and they were kind of like useless other than to sell or break down for alloy. So I'm kind of glad about that. Obviously the explosive combat, damn, that's a lot of explosive combat to make them, but it's a very powerful grenade at times. It can feel a little unruly to be predictable because it essentially has this bubble of 100 meters. It says 100 meter homing range, and any targets within it can easily be homed onto. So if you're going to use it against a Rocketeer or like even a Leaper, be very careful about what's around you. It's very easy for one rocket to go and tag a Leaper that you didn't want to deal with, or you throw it at a Rocketeer and half the projectiles go for Hornets and Wasps, and you're left with a Rocketeer that is like half health. That doesn't feel particularly good. But if you can use it in optimal scenarios, it is awesome for just one tapping or nearly one tapping a Rocketeer. Try to throw it above the Rocketeer so it tracks onto the engines. It doesn't just track onto the body. It's kind of it'll leave it alive if it hits more of the body than the engines. If you're using it against like Bastions and Bombardiers, try to get a flank on them. If you're throwing it, try to make sure it air bursts before it gets to the target, because you don't want to just throw it at the target. I've seen so many people accidentally throw it at the enemy. It blows up. It does no damage because it needs time to kind of like arm the little missiles, I guess you could say. So be aware of that. Be careful. Wouldn't really recommend it versus the Queen unless I've seen some teams. We were actually fighting against a team over a Queen, and what they did was they Hulk crackered and like equalizered all of the armor off all of the legs on the Queen. Then they threw their Wolfpacks. It actually does a lot of damage in that scenario, because typically when you're throwing it at a Queen, it's going to hit all the individual legs that are armored at that point. So the Wolfpacks will actually end up doing technically more damage than they would have if you threw them immediately. Kind of an interesting way to do it. It works, but more or less I'm like using these on like Matriarch to take care of like the enemy like big spawns especially when they spawn on top of you. Just a quick way to deal with them, so you know you're not getting pushed by PvP at the same time. Obviously it doesn't do anything in PvE, so this is like purely like where am I going to place it for PvE. I think it's like an A tier. Obviously you can't stack them, and they are a little bit hard to use. They're pretty expensive to make at this point, but they're fairly common to find in night raids. So I do think they're like nice to have, especially if you are like, you know, getting pushed by Rocketeer and you need something to deal with it really quickly. Take it out of the safety pocket, chuck it onto your bar, throw it. Can feel quite nice for that. Okay, we got our new grenade. We have the Trailblazer. Unfortunately, I don't have any of these on me to like show it in game. I don't actually know if the blueprint is dropping. Not sure. Don't really know what the crafting is like for it, but I got the tip that for crude explosive, if you hover over it, you'll see Trailblazer there. So I can tell you it at least takes explosive combat. I don't actually know what the rest of the crafting is for it, and they don't even sell it, which is pretty annoying at Apollo. So I got to throw a couple. If you haven't been able to throw them yet, it's a gas grenade, but with like explosive intent. You throw it, and as it travels through the air, it releases like gas clouds, and then it eventually has a fuse timer and it explodes, and then it does a chain reaction of the gas coming back. It's all right. I find most players are very smart to get out of the way, and it doesn't really do that much damage if you only get hit by one of the clouds, because it does 40 damage per, I believe, individual gas explosion. So it's like a light impact more or less, but many times in a row. What you could do is like throw it in close quarters, and it like all bunches up and that player stays in it, then they get one shot. That's like not unlikely to happen. I find it's usually best in like a scenario where maybe there's a bunch of players running at you in a very narrow hallway and you manage to throw it all the way down, and then like I guess like there's these niche scenarios where I could possibly see it being useful, but in my time of only throwing it like 6 times, I don't know. And I've seen clips of people throwing it and like taking damage from 2 individual explosions. So it did about the same amount of damage as like a heavy fuse. Cool, but it's a little too niche for my liking. It's probably going to be like low B, high C. I don't know exactly how cheap it is to make or if there's going to be more of them. But honestly, just because of how rare it is right now, I'm probably just going to put it in C tier. Just not seeing a lot of people have them or looting them. Can't buy them from Apollo. Not seeing them really in chests or crates and stuff like that. Kind of just like it's a white whale of a grenade. I don't know. It seems odd. Another new grenade, we have the Homing Seeker. It's just a baby Wolfpack. It's just like kind of like one of the rockets, more or less. It does do less damage than each individual Wolfpack because the Wolfpacks are reported doing 166 times 12, 12 rockets, 166 damage per, and our Seeker grenade is only doing 50. The homing range is also greatly reduced, but that's also to our benefit. So it doesn't do any shenanigans like pulling the wrong enemy. I did have scenarios where it very easily one-shot Wasps. It seems to be pretty consistent one-shot on Hornets as well. If you're just struggling and bringing light pen weapons and you're just struggling against Hornets, I can see it as a decent option. I can't see this as something that I want to regularly bring in personally, but I'm someone who's, you know, not really struggling against Hornets, so it may change depending on, you know, how new you are to the game or how comfortable you are fighting Hornets. I wouldn't really use this against like other types of arc. I don't think it really works great against them. You're kind of just better off saving this for something else in your loadout or just selling it for the cash and just buying a different nade. But if Hornets suck for you, I guess, but it's too niche for my liking and it doesn't feel particularly great against the bigger enemies. All right, talking about niche, light sticks. Because it's so easy to just increase your gamma in this game using NVIDIA or AMD or your monitor settings, I don't find light sticks to be particularly great other than for like RP. I think they would be pretty cool if you could not increase the brightness in other means. Just a heads up, I do think they should just be a brightness setting in game. You shouldn't have to like go outside the game to increase the brightness, because sometimes there are some extremely dark corners that people just sit in and they have an absolute advantage because the corner you're in is illuminated better than they're in and they can see you perfectly and you're just silhouetted, and it doesn't make for some great gameplay, unfortunately. Light sticks would be cool, but I don't know. D tier, if you see them, I'm probably just dropping them. That's about it. And now the last one, you might be like, why did you put this here? What is this? So like other things, so like if you haven't noticed, you can throw some things in game like Hornet drivers and stuff like that, and things happen when you throw them. So like when you throw like a Hornet driver, for instance, you can like shoot it and it does like a small explosion and stuff like that. This does it a little bit better. It's got a 7-meter radius. Here, let me get back into game. It's got a 7.5-meter radius and 80 damage. It's actually really impressive. Someone did it to me the first time today in Stellamontis and it terrified me. I was like, what did he just throw at me? And it scared me, and it did as much damage as a heavy fuse. You do have to shoot it. So you throw it, you can't throw it that far, but it does heavy fuse level damage. And I feel like so many people are going to be like, what did you just do? That they're actually going to be caught out like it, like me. So at least for now, honestly, B tier, because it's not that hard to find. You can buy these off of Celeste and you can surprise people pretty well with it. Some honorable mentions are like snitch drivers. You can use a snitch driver possibly to your benefit. It'd probably be somewhere in B to C tier, but very good for like farming trials if you need to spawn lots of wasps. Hornet and wasp drivers you can throw and then you can shoot. I made the mistake of throwing it and like didn't do anything. What the hell happened? But they can explode. Yeah, if you shoot them, they can be a bit awkward. I find the red container, the synthesized fuel, is so big that it's pretty easy to shoot, whereas like Hornet drivers and wasp drivers are like so small. They're like cylindrical objects that like can be pretty annoying and can get stuck behind like objects and you might not be able to shoot them. So there's some other throwables out there, but I feel like none are as advantageous as the synthesized fuel. I could even see it be pretty useful against like using against like a bombardier or a bastion in a way, like if you could throw it underneath their legs maybe, or set it up as a trap and he like runs or walks over it. But yeah, I didn't put it here, but I would say the snitch driver would be an honorable mention as one that like pick them up. They could be useful in a fight, but they can go against you. When you throw them, try to throw them as far as possible and on top of enemies. If the enemies or the enemies that you spawn in are not mad at the enemies that you are trying to get them on, it can work against you and you might just have a bunch of PvE on your friends because you can't throw them very far. You gotta be careful. Try to throw them down at enemies maybe, and don't throw too many of them because it can not work in your benefit. Oh, top tip. If you're trying to do your trials and you're like, I just threw 5 and it only spawned like 2 sets of them. Where are the other ones? If there isn't enough room to spawn all of the wasps and hornets and stuff like that, they'll actually just be on the ground undamaged. You have to go pick them up and throw them again. There's kind of like an entity limit in like small batches, right, around. So if you're gonna throw them at an enemy, kind of like spread them out, like throw one here, one there, one here, and then let them go. And if you don't see enemies spawn over top of it, go pick up the wasp driver or the snitch driver. It most likely just dudded and you can throw it again. So top tip, we noticed that while we were doing our trials, we were throwing them all in one spot and it wasn't spawning any enemies and it was kind of awkward. So yeah, wait, I just thought of one. The rubber ducky. You could technically throw that. I know there's going to be someone in the comment section. Maybe you already typed it. Good on you. You can throw the rubber ducky. Yeah, you can throw that. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. I can't think of any. But yeah, let me know. Do you guys want to see a mine/gadget? I was thinking of maybe doing mines and gadgets together maybe for the next tier list and talk about like the pros and cons of each one. But I'd be curious, is there something I missed in this tier list? Am I undervaluing or overvaluing anything? And is there any ones I missed? Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. We do these live and I stream basically every day other than Mondays, early morning, very early morning, NA, 3 a.m. EST. That's about 9 a.m. Central European time to about noon-ish Eastern to, I think that'd be like 6 p.m. Central European time. So come on by the stream. I'm live both on Twitch and YouTube, Maplewood_TV. Remember, this is my videos channel. I have a live streaming channel, Maplewood_TV. Much love, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Peace.